Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. My name is Joe Carr. Our guest today is Bobby Freed, a proud member of the Providence College class of 1967. Bobby is a best-selling author and a marketing executive who is animated by helping people achieve true success by, as he says, achieving the balance between making money and making meaning. Those principles are outlined in his book, Igniting Your True Purpose and Passion, which we will discuss in just a couple of minutes. Bobby, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Good to be with you.
So describe what you see when you look out the window of your home in Carmel, California on a beautiful, sunny summer morning.
Well, I don't want to make you jealous, but I see spectacular waves hitting rocks coming towards my window with beautiful pine trees surrounding it. And this is Carmel by the sea.
Sounds.
Clint Eastwood was our mayor here.
All right. Well, sounds beautiful. So good for you. We like to start our alumni interviews kind of at the beginning, and that is, I'd like to ask you to tell us what brought you to PC in the first place back in the early 1960s.
Sure. Well, I chose PC over Villanova because when I stepped on this beautiful campus, wasn't a lot of buildings in those days, a lot of trees though, I felt this was kind of a small but beautiful school where big dreams could happen. It kind of reminded me a bit of that little engine that could, if you will. My academic interest was writing and good communication, presentation dynamics, and as you know, Providence has splendid English and history courses which excelled in writing. I would say this: PC instilled in me kind of a sense of core values, a sense of right or wrong, which served me well later in both business and in life. And all in all, I, like many others, really treasured my PC experience.
And you and I were talking the other day, and you mentioned you moved up here from New Jersey, so you grew up kind of outside New York City and in the northern New Jersey?
Yeah, that's correct. My dad had a landmark restaurant overlooking the New York skyline on the Jersey side. It was Hoboken, New Jersey. It was a little rough in those days, and that now I think they're all brownstones for $2.5 million as they knock down the docks.
You talk a lot, Bobby, about having passions in life. And for you, one of those is Friar Basketball. What are some of the highlights that come to mind when you think of following the Friars over the course of, about 6 decades?
Well, I am a huge Friar and college basketball fan. As a kid, I watched Vinnie Ernst and Ray Flynn win the NIT at the old Garden. In those days, as you know, the NIT was probably bigger than the NCAA tournament. I was at PC during those fabulous Jimmy Walker, Mike Reardon, and a guy that under the radar, Dexter Westbrook, who was an undersized center but a great passer. Those years were great. We were one game from the Final Four when we ran into a guy by the name of Bill Bradley and his Princeton gang. I think we lost by 40. Of course, we all remember the Final Four run of Ernie D and Marvin Barnes. They did the heroics of, I guess, Billy the Kid in '87. I was there. I flew from L.A. to Providence. I saw Pop Lewis hit that three in the corner to beat Georgetown, and John Thompson and Rick Pitino with a big smile on his face. Of course, I remember one shot away from the Final Four in '97 with God Shemagod and Austin Crozier. But I would say this, and Joe, I think you might agree with me. For sheer excitement and suspense, who could ever forget the magic carpet ride we just witnessed last year with the Cardiac Kids, the lucky Cardiac Kids in quotes. It seemed like every game came down to the final 2 minutes and somehow we'd find a way to win with a different player contributing every game. Not good for the heart, Joe, but good for the soul.
Well, as someone who follows basketball so closely, I suspect you'll agree with this, my contention that a big part of that is coaching, because the coach put National Coach of the Year, Ed Cooley, obviously had the right people in the right place, prepared to execute correctly at the end of those close games. And look what happened. They won just about all of them.
Well, Coach had he pushed all the right buttons, that's for sure, in this incredible season. And well-deserved that he became Coach of the Year. We heard Jimmy Walker elected into the Hall of Fame for basketball. So all in all, with a Sweet 16 run, what a memorable ride.
Yeah, it sure was. That's the College Basketball Hall of Fame. And thank you for pointing that out. That's an important honor for Jimmy Walker, in the minds of many, the greatest Friar. ever. And maybe we can come back at the end and see if you have a thought on that you'd like to share. But let's move on a little bit, Bobby, and talk a bit about your career in marketing. Can you give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of the work that you have done? You've had success in really helping to build some iconic brands.
Yeah, well, look, I won a scholarship right out of grad school where I went to Boston University, got a master's in marketing, and I won this internship at Motorola in Chicago to study under a marketing guru who had written a best-selling book. My boss got sick, and so they sent me to head up the international marketing division based in Toronto long before I was ready, just right out of school. But there I traveled the world on my job, and at a young age I learned to respect the cultures and the ways of people beyond just our own. Eventually I ended up in Los Angeles directing the successful turnaround of a legendary audiophile stereo company called Marantz. And from there I became president of Nautilus, and then entrepreneurship kicked in where we co-founded Planet Products. It was a biodegradable green, and still is, a lineup of laundry and dishwashing liquid detergents that not only cleaned well, but was great for the environment. And we were among the first to sell green products into a supermarket, not just health food stores. But I think my whole career turned around when I joined this tiny little eyewear frame company in Los Angeles as part owner. And right place, right time. We repositioned the company from medical implements, the whole corrective lenses, namely eyewear frames, to the fashion accessory business. And we changed the entire eyewear industry by going from medical to creating consumer niches. Let me give you an example. All frames at the time looked alike. No, they were preppy and unisex. Men and women didn't distinguish frames one from another. But we went out and licensed names like Laura Ashley for a mature woman, Eddie Bauer for the great outdoors, a Coach for American luxury, BB for kind of a hint of sensuality, and Oakley for sports. The company was very successful, and we later took it public. And this is where my life took a turn. People, financial press, LA Times, the Wall Street Journal were telling me how successful I was. But in fact, I was lost. If I was so successful, how come I didn't feel successful? And I think it was probably the narrowly defined way I defined true success. So amazingly, I sat down at 4:30 in the morning before I went to my day job, and I started to write a book about how you find your true purpose and passion and how that can lead to true success. And the book became a runaway bestseller. And I think it's because I was on the same journey as the reader.
Interesting how that became a turning point. By the way, Bobby, what was the name of that eyewear company?
We called it Signature Eyewear because of all the signature brands I just mentioned.
Signature, gotcha. But back to the book now. So this is a turning point. You're up early in the morning writing this book, which really, I've read it. It's terrific. It outlines your philosophy of life and work. And it comes down to some really important salient core points. And one is this issue of true success, this matter of true success. Can you elaborate on what you mean by redefining true success?
Sure. Success and monetary achievement, I think, have always been an integral part of our American way of life. I think it's part of our very DNA, our very fabric. But now more than ever in these turbulent times, I think we need to take a step back. Take a step back and wonder if we haven't been defining success far too narrowly for far too long. Look, even in business circles, it's not just about making money, it's also about meaning. People don't just buy what you make, they buy why you make it. In short, people get this, buy valuables from people they value. It's that simple. And I really think Ralph Waldo Emerson had kind of a true handle on success when he said something like, to know that even one life is breathed easy because you have lived, this is to have true success. Now, unfortunately for me, by that Emersonian definition of success, I wasn't very successful. I was all about scorecard then, how fast, how soon, how much. And as a marketing executive, I guess I made my fair share of hires and helped hire people and made my share of money, but I'm not so sure I was making a lot of meaning. What I did know, it wasn't enough to have etched on my tombstone, here lies Bobby Freed. He sold a lot of stuff. Not that Not that selling is not important, mind you. It just wasn't the totality of who I needed to be. Because I needed to know, like others before me, Joe, that true success always involves others beyond yourself. And that true success is achieving that delicate balance, if you will, between making money and making meaning. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, you can make even more meaning sometimes when you make money. See Oprah Winfrey, Bill and Melinda Gates, and Warren Buffett. I believe you're beginning to live a life of purpose when you plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. That's one of the reasons we started Planet Products. Look, Martin Luther King once said the purpose of life should be a life of purpose. But here's the problem. There was this research study done by Dr. William Morton. He asked 3,000 supposedly high achievers what their true purpose in life was. And get this, a whopping 94% said, we have no idea what our true purpose in life is. Well, if that's the case, then I'll tell you what unhappiness is. Unhappiness is not knowing what you want and killing yourself to get it. Not knowing what you want and killing yourself to get it. You know, some people refer to this great country of ours, the USA, as the United States of anxiety. Think about it. We're among the best fed, most highest paid people in the world, but we don't even rank among the top 15 countries when it comes to happiness. That's reserved for mostly Scandinavian countries. Costa Rica comes to mind. Go figure. Unless happiness goes beyond just making money. I think the most happy countries tend to understand things more clearly, like things like health is wealth. And look, finding your true purpose is hard work. It doesn't come as an epiphany. It doesn't come gift wrapped. It starts as kind of an itch. It starts inside your soul, if you will. Like, how can I take my strengths and apply them back to help others? And I think when trying to define our purpose, we might heed the words from the Little Prince when he said something like, one sees clearly only with the heart.
One sees clearly only with the heart. That makes me think of a project that you have underway, which we're going to get to in a few minutes, because obviously you brought some real passion to this and from a personal perspective. But Bobby has written an ebook called A Cancer Survivor's Etiquette Guide, How to Act and Communicate with Someone You Know Battling Cancer. We're going to talk about that project and make a version available to our listeners through a link in the show notes. More to come on that. So that's kind of a teaser about what's coming up here. But Bobby, more about your philosophy. In the book, you talk about the importance of building a personal brand. Why is that so important?
Well, I think people who are truly successful understand that importance of personal brand building, which, by the way, comes in awful handy in that all-important job search interview. Well, let me put it this way. Just like the CEO of a company, you're in charge of your own personal brand. Okay, you're not Nike, you're not Google, you're not Apple, you're not Facebook or Twitter, but you're in charge of a vitally important brand called, get this, Me Inc. Okay? And your personal brand kind of creates a pulpit, if you will, for who you are and the value you offer to others. And again, remember, people buy valuables from people they value. Hey, I got a stock tip for you all today. You want to buy stock? Then take personal stock in a company called Me Inc. It'll be the best investment you ever make. Remember, really, when you stop and think about it, the most important startup on this planet is you. And how should I say this? We all need to become entrepreneurs of our own existence.
There's a certain fluidity to this too, isn't there? We need to kind of redefine ourselves in turbulent times, and think of the pandemic that we're living through as a great example of that.
Yeah, I would say that truly successful people, like companies and organizations, are in and should be in a constant state of evolution, or what we call beta. We need to reboot and pivot now and then, as you mentioned, especially in these turbulent times. I mean, look no further than how our whole education system had to rethink itself and rely more on the tools of technology during the pandemic. And hey, during the pandemic, how would you like to be a restaurant owner or the owner of a cruise ship line? You'd have to rethink your marketing plan. Look, companies have product cycles. We as people have life cycles. And there's this great quote: no man steps, if I have this right, no man steps in the same river twice. Guess what? It's not the same river, and he's not the same man. And a lot of famous people have reinvented themselves. Let me tick off a few. Lady Gaga. Well, she reinvents herself every time she walks on stage. We all remember George Foreman as a surly heavyweight champion. Nobody liked him. But then he went on to be a smiling pitchman for the George Foreman grilling machine and products and services beyond. Mark Wahlberg went from being a juvenile delinquent to a rock star to a Calvin Klein underwear model to a famous actor. In short, I don't think you're never too old, Joe, or even too young to reinvent yourself. Grandma Moses started painting at age 76 and didn't quit till age 103. But on the flip side, hockey great Sidney Crosby started practicing his autograph, get this, at age 7, thinking it would come in handy someday. And after a couple of gold medals and Stanley Cups, it certainly did. So my point is simple. We got to stay nimble, because as long as we have life, our life story is still unfolding.
You referenced the sort of the pace of the world that we live in now, very fast-paced, digital, everything's connected. And that makes time management sort of a challenge for all of us. Do you have thoughts on ways we can get better at using our time more wisely?
Yeah, I like to call it, instead of time management, investing your time and energy wisely. For most of us, we always seem to be racing around. First off, let me say this. If you don't know what really matters most and you haven't taken the time to do that, you're always going to have a problem with time management. But to fully understand time management, I think we need to go back to the days of the Greeks. The Greeks thought there were two types of time. First one was chronological or chronos time. No 1 minute, no 1 hour, no 1 day was any more important than any other. It was just straight linear time. But there was another type of time called kilos time. Time not to be spent, but to be savored, all right? Not to be spent, but to be invested on things that really matter most. Honing in, if you will, on the A's, not so much the B's and C's. Look, we all have the same 24 hours a day as Lady Gaga, Tim Cook, Oprah Winfrey, and Steven Spielberg. It's up to us to use those hours wisely. It's been said many times that time is a tyrant. Au contraire, time is not a tyrant. Time is the great equalizer. And as we all know, time is fleeting. So none of us know how much time we have left. So we have to make every sunset count. And that's what I'm trying to do here in Carmel, California.
Where they're beautiful. So it works out nicely. A 3-word phrase from your book, Bobby, the conundrum of connecting. Tell us more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, and in today's digital world, we're presented with a conundrum of, as you mentioned, of connectiveness. All these wonderful digital tools, at one hand, they're marvelous because they connect us in ways we never dreamed of. But on the other hand, they disconnect us because they kind of rob us of one of the most important human experiences of all, the human experience of depth. Ironically, they tend to make someone we don't know closer, but those who we do know further apart. Look, one only has to read the handwritten love letters from previous wars or grandfathers to understand what I mean by depth. I mean, those letters flew off the page. They were fuego. They were hot. Hey, I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying these digital tools aren't wonderful. Heck, they allow me to watch every Providence basketball game while I'm sitting on my butt watching the waves roll in Carmel. But what I am saying is this. Once in a while, I think we need to take a digital detox. Our concern, if you will, should not be so much that machines are beginning to think like people, but rather that people are beginning to think like machines. And I would add this, simply put, there are things in this world we simply can't download, but need to upload the old-fashioned way, one human being to another.
Another subject you've addressed, Bobby, is goal setting. Why is it seemingly more difficult to set goals in our personal life than it may be in our professional lives?
Well, you're right. Goal setting in business is business as usual. But setting personal goals, well, that's a horse of a different color. It's a lot tougher. I have my own theory as to why. I think most people really don't know the difference between a goal and an objective. So if you bear with me, I'll make it come alive for you. An objective is general in nature. For instance, an objective would be, I like to lose weight. But a goal is always quantifiable. It's got numbers and time attached to it. So keeping in the weight vernacular, if an objective, general, is like to lose weight, then a goal is like to lose 12 pounds in the next 18 months and keep that weight off forever in a sensible diet and exercise program. You got to think of it like this. Goals are really dreams with deadlines attached. And vague goals produce what? You guessed it, vague results. And I would say one of the biggest reasons people fail to reach their goals is fear of failure. But get this. You go to the Baseball Hall of Fame by failing 2 out of 3 times. Do the math. You get 1 hit out of 3 times at bat. You're batting 333. Unless you're Pete Rose and bet on baseball, you're on your way to Cooperstown. And we all know this. The best salespeople, they get turned down 7 out of 10 times a day. But they just view the no's as a mere gateway to a yes. Simply put, high-achieving people are not afraid to fail.
So I thank you, Bobby, for taking us through some of the points, some of the areas that you cover in your book. Again, the name of the book is Igniting Your True Purpose and Passion. And listeners, you can tell from this discussion, it's enjoyable, it's insightful, it's inspiring. So there's a lot there, and it's really great to hear you describe in detail some of your thinking behind some of those important points. As we transition to talking about Bobby's next project, a new project, I should say, let's talk about the matter of perseverance. Bobby, it's been said that a lack of perseverance is self-evident, and one reason that people fail to meet their goals. What's your take on the matter of perseverance and how that connects to goal setting and goal achievement?
Yeah, you're right. Perseverance is a key reason people fail to reach their goals. A lot of people in history persevered and never gave up. Let me tick off a few. Winston Churchill, when he was the odds-on favorite to become prime minister at age 35, but he didn't become prime minister till age 66 when World War II broke out. Walt Disney, if you believe this or not, he was fired by the Kansas City Star for lack of creativity. Soap opera actress Susan Lucci, she lost her coveted bid for an Emmy 19 straight times before she finally won. That's a lot of rubber chicken dinners. We all know this. Abe Lincoln lost a venerable string of elections prior to winning the presidency of the United States and arguably becoming one of our best presidents ever. Michael Jordan, we all know this, was cut in his sophomore year by his basketball team in high school. Jennifer Hudson comes to mind. She's voted off American Idol, and she goes on to win an Academy Award for a spellbinding performance in Dreamgirls. J.K. Rowling comes to mind. She sits around her kitchen table, 2 kids on welfare, and pens a little thing called Harry Potter. Point here is don't give up too soon. And life is either really a daring adventure or simply nothing at all. And look, Hunter S. Thompson, one of my favorite writers, lived here in Carmel. And he has a great quote that reminds us that we should all live life in kind of a vivid color. And I'd like to read that quote to you now. One of my favorites. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride."
It's almost definitely the first Hunter S. Thompson reference in the Providence College podcast history. So thank you for that. Good stuff. And on the matter of perseverance, Bobby, and this is leading to the discussion of your new project, you had your own personal test, which led you recently to write a short ebook called A Cancer Survivor's Guide, How to Act and Communicate with Someone You Know Battling Cancer. Tell us about your experience and what led to this book.
Well, over the years, friends and colleagues have asked me, hey, you've written 2 best-selling books. You got a bestseller in China now, and how come you've never written about surviving cancer? My answer was quick and simple. Hey, I don't want to be pigeonholed as only a cancer survivor. I'm more than that. I'm proud of it, but I'm more than that. But then I got to thinking, if someone thought less of me for being a survivor, that's probably someone I ought not to meet. Look, we all unfortunately know someone battling cancer, but how should we act? How do we communicate with our friends and family upon hearing this shocking news? And out of this was born something I wrote called a Cancer Survivor's Etiquette Guide. How to act and communicate with someone you know battling cancer. And of course, we all know someone battling cancer. What's been amazing is the reaction to this little ebook has been overwhelmingly positive and gratifying. Cancer centers around the world are using it as part of their orientation package for family and cancer patients, and it's been the response has been absolutely amazing. I'm getting emails from people around the world I never heard of, telling me that this little tiny little book has helped them immensely communicate with those they know battling cancer. Who knew? And I tell you, it feels good to be able to make some meaning beyond just money, and maybe this is really my true success. Who knew?
Well, thank you for sharing that, Bobby. And listeners, we're going to make a version of that ebook in which Bobby provides more detail on his own personal experience here, available to you. Check the show notes for a YouTube link where you will find Bobby's narration of this lovely, meaningful work. As Bobby mentioned, it's getting a lot of well-deserved attention, and we think you will both enjoy it and gain some useful insights. By the way, the title of Bobby's first book, the one that we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, once again, is Igniting Your True Purpose and Passion. It's insightful and entertaining, and I think you might enjoy that too. Bobby Freed, thank you for joining us today. This has been both fun and illuminating.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
By the way, back to the beginning, is Jimmy Walker the greatest Friar player in your experience?
Not only the greatest Friar player, I think he's one of the best collegiate players of all time.
High praise. There you go. So, and well-deserved honor coming his way. It's been fun to talk about Friar hoops with you as well today. Maybe we could talk again someday just on that subject. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
It sure would.
That sounds good. Our guest has been Bobby Freed, and thank you, listeners. A reminder that you can find all of the Providence College podcasts in the usual places and on PC's news website and the college's YouTube channel. For producer Chris Judge, I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.